This is Larry Bauer, Chief Executive Officer of the Family Medicine Education Consortium, and I'm excited tonight to be talking with and to be hearing from the folks at Altoona Family Medicine Residency Program. I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Kathleen Sweeney, and she will take it from here. Dr. Sweeney.
Well, welcome everybody. Those of us that were on a little earlier, we were doing a little chit-chatty. If we go to a second screen and I don't see your name, I apologize because this is my first Zoom party. I've done Zoom lectures, but never Zoom parties. I want to tell you where we are. UPMC Altoona, we're central Pennsylvania, about 2.5 hours from Pittsburgh, about 4 hours from Philly. It's 2 hours the way Dr. Beckstead drives. I'm just doing it the way I drive, it's 2.5. And we are a hospital that's about 360 beds. Our residents are the only residents in the hospital, except for there's 4 transitional years that work in our program also. And we do everything from OB to ICU to internal medicine. And we have a palliative care fellowship, and we have a lot of fun. We're a lot of hands-on and a lot of great teaching. Dr. Beckstead is our program director. Do you want to say a few words, Dr. B, before we get going? Oh, I can't hear you, Dawn. You got to unmute yourself. I still can't hear you. It might be poor Wi-Fi. I can get back to you. He's really nice. I'll just like, he's a really great guy. And I love working with him, and we were in residency together. So he just has to sit there and look like a great guy. When he wants to say something later, he can come in. Okay, well, what I wanted to talk about today, and some of the students that got on earlier told me the reason they tuned in is kind of the reason when I was a young medical student that I wanted to hear from women in medicine. I just kind of had all kinds of thoughts of, what do I want to do with my career? How do I want to balance family life? How do I want to shape what I do, whether it's academic or in private practice? And there were not a lot of role models. Now, this is the part where I talk about walking in the snow 10 feet, maybe even 20. But I graduated from PCOM, like Morgan, in 1984. And back then, out of 210 people in our class, there were only 30 women. And we were just like, one girl had a baby while we were in med school, and you would have thought it was just like a miracle. Like, oh, somebody had a baby in med school. That was like this amazing thing. Because we just didn't even think, you could think about family life because we had to be very focused on only, studying. I remember that we had an endocrinologist that came from, there used to be a women's college of medicine in Philadelphia, and she had 5 children. And I remember her lecture to this day because I don't remember any of the endocrine, but I just was so kind of interested in how she did 5 kids and had a busy endocrine practice. Found out it's because she had a nanny and a helpful husband. But which still kind of works well. But there really weren't a lot of people that could kind of give you some guideposts. Now, I'll tell you right now, we're going to share all kinds of ideas with you, and I'm going to guide this today based on what you want to know. But I'm really thankful that today things have changed a lot. Back when I was just starting in my career, I felt like when I took job interviews, I was making excuses saying, oh, I might want to have a baby. When I had maternity leave, they made me resign from my job because it was right before FMLA came in. So there's a lot of wonderful changes that have happened. And so everybody's experience, thank the Lord, has been much better as the years go by, but there's still challenges. So with that being said, I'm going to give you a one-liner about me, and then I'm going to ask each of our women faculty to give a one-liner, and then you start thinking about what you want us to talk about. And I have some conversation starters if nothing strikes you. So I'm Dr. Sweeney. I graduated from PCOM in '84. I was in private practice for a while, and then Dr. Beckstead and another faculty member brought me back to start an osteopathic internship in our program. I've been here since 1990. I love it. I do women's health, gynecology, colposcopy, the OMT curriculum and everything osteopathic, and plan our didactics. And I have four older stepkids and my own 2 that I birthed and a whole bunch of grandkids. So with that being said, and I like skiing and Pilates and hiking and everything active, I'm gonna let Amanda, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Amanda Catoy. I graduated from Altoona Family Physicians Residency nearly 10 years ago. So I'm starting out my career, but not fresh out. So I graduated and worked in private practice for a few years, and then I came back to the residency about 4 years ago. I do a lot of women's health and a lot of adolescent medicine. I am a school doctor for a local boarding school. I also do obstetrics, so I really like to deliver babies and take care of newborns. And I am getting married in 11 days, so that's coming up quickly. Thanks.
Thank you, Amanda. Fiona, can you give us a little introduction?
Hi everybody, I'm Fee McClellan. I'm originally from the UK. The year I went to med school, 1989, a long time ago now, my class was the first year where there were more women than men. So that's, a little historical perspective. So I graduated med school in 95 and did an internship year there, where I will say there were not really that many women role models in medicine, period. So my husband took a job at Penn State, so we relocated here to Central PA 24 years ago now. And so now we have a college-age kids who are in high school. My interest within the practice, rural family medicine, I'm the rural director. I'm also one of the obstetric faculty, and my key interest is peds. So I do OB so that we have peds, because I really like to take care of children, even though my own are pretty grown now. Some of the things I like to do in my spare time, particularly, I'm active outside of COVID in one of the local symphonies. Like to do everything musical, and maybe if there's time, we'll talk a little about that, how we juggle personal interests and kids' many activities into our schedules when we're working full-time in family medicine.
Thank you, Fee. And I see that Laura is on the line. Laura, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Laura Steems. I'm one of the faculty that joined the residency in 2006. I graduated from Temple University Medical School in, I guess it was 1995, and went to residency in Chicago, and then came back to Central Pennsylvania since I did a lot of my growing up in this area. And I've been delivering babies since I graduated from residency. So for about 8 years, I was the only female physician delivering babies in Huntingdon County until I joined the residency and came over to Blair County. I'm also the college physician at Juniata College, and so I enjoy adolescent health, college health, OB. I have 3 boys, and I had my first child in medical school, and then my other 2 once I was out as a new attending. My youngest is still in high school. My older 2, one in college and one past college. I guess that's about it. And I, like Dr. McClellan, play in a local symphony and make sure that I maintain other interests outside of medicine to keep me well-rounded.
Well, very good. Now, is there anybody else from AFP besides Dr. B on the line? Okay, well then why don't we get started? Students, I'm going to start with you. Is there anything burning on your mind? I already have, Alex told me, and one of the other students told me they're a little interested in how we balance, and I don't think balance is possible personally. I think it's more like you juggle. I think you kind of keep things going, and some weeks you're doing more family stuff, sometimes you're doing more work stuff, and kind of keep things in motion. But can some of the students just throw out a couple of things you have on your mind today so that I make sure we cover them, and I'm going to jot them down. And if you're feeling shy, that's okay. I'll just get it started. But I just want to make sure that I accomplish what you want.
How about like leadership as a woman in medicine?
Oh, that's great, great topic. I had that on my list, but that way I'll know what to go to. Leadership we have balance or lack of balance.
What about like pay negotiations? Because I keep hearing about like the gender pay gap and
okay, that's
issues.
a great one. I got that down. Anything else from the students?
I have questions about being a physician and a mother in private practice. I see that a lot of people end up leaving private practice, and I'd like to know if that's a general theme or if it's possible to really stay in private practice as a mom too.
Very good, because we have a lot of our grads stay in our area and quite a few in private practice. And I'm going to think of who should answer these questions. Students, oh, hi, Kiati. There's one of our other faculty. She's here today. And we were just introducing Kiati. Do you want to introduce yourself? And then the students are letting me know what their priorities are tonight.
Hi guys, my name is Kathleen. I am a faculty at Altoona Family Physicians. I do full spectrum family medicine, including OB. And yeah, I'm here to answer your questions.
Thank you, thank you. Students, anything else that you want me to hit on?
I actually have one question in regards to like maternity leave. You know, in the future, thinking about having children, and I've talked to a lot of female physicians, and they tend to have a really hard time working out maternity leave. They might not get paid, or situations like that. How do you help negotiate situations like that, or they have to take their time off? Like they actually have issues with negotiating that. So I'm just curious.
Cover that. We'll cover that. We're already almost got enough for an hour right there. Anything else? A couple more students, throw it on out, and then I'll get started. Anything else to make sure I hit these things?
What about any prejudice you experience in a rural central Pennsylvania area against women physicians?
Morgan, I missed the very first part of that question. Something.
You're good. Do you experience any prejudice in a rural area?
That's a good question. We'll talk about that too. Okay, well, very good. I think we have enough to get started. So, oh, Megan's here. Hello, Megan. We didn't expect you till later. Introduce yourself, Megan.
Okay, I'm Megan Maurer. I'm one of the faculty at AFP. I have 4 kids and they're all pretty young. They're all 6 and under. And I don't know, what else do you want to know? Hobbies or what
Well, you can do whatever you want. We already told them you're from Rowan. We have another Rowan student on the line.
Oh, okay, great. As far as interests, I like lifestyle medicine and pediatrics. And I don't know, hobbies, I like to bake, spend time with my family. And yeah.
Glad we could, glad you can make it. And if you have to run out for the baby, we will understand.
Okay. That's okay. All in bed. Hopefully they'll stay in bed.
Very good. The first thing we're going to start with is that question of balance. And I'm going to throw it out to different faculty. But one of the things I wrote down, because I thought balance might come up as an issue. And I guess I'll let the faculty debate, is there really balance, or is it kind of like I was always taught, and that is that you get one pie in life of time, and you don't get to get 2 pies. So when you put more things in your pie, you just need smaller pieces of the pie cut. If you know what I mean, like you just don't get more time, is you kind of balance things out. One thing that I will tell you is when I have a female advisee or a male advisee with a kid or whatever, I always tell people, you know, there's not too many kids that write on their essay when they're about, if they have to write why they love their parents, they don't usually say, my mother cleaned the bathroom better than anybody else's mother. So I usually tell people, get rid of stuff you don't enjoy doing, you know, get some chores off your plate so you have more time to spend, like reading books with your kids and having fun. I mean, if you love scrubbing, go ahead. But, you know, I always say, you know, you can do that when you're older, but when the kids are little, you need some help because you can't do everything. Fiona, do you want to talk anything about how to kind of fit everything in and balance?
Yeah, I will say Kathy was a great role model for that. I had my kids when Kathy had already been somewhat through that, and she gave me great advice about it doesn't matter if you don't have the pristine house. We decided to err on the side of have a housekeeper come and clean our house once a week to do the basic stuff. I will say, you know, it's not perfect even after she's been, but at least I know the place is sanitized. When the kids were little, we were running all directions in the evenings to different activities. It was definitely a juggle rather than balance. We had to create a schedule so that my husband was great about taking kids places, but I had to be the master scheduler and make sure it would work if I wasn't available for some reason. He had to be able to drop and pick up kids because we don't have any family here. Most of our friends also work or are also busy raising kids. So, you have to find what balance works for yourself. If you can't live without a pristine house, then really consider getting a really good cleaning service, because there are more important things to do with your time.
Yeah, and I think that spouse that Fiona just mentioned, whether you're in a relationship with a man or a woman, whoever you're in relationship with, if you're going to be working and they're going to be working, you need teamwork, because it's all got to kind of jive together, because no one person can easily pull off careers and kids and everything else. So having a partner or support system, if you don't have a partner, I remember in med school, one of my friends was actually a professional NBA player and a med student. And she had finished the NBA when she went to med student, the Women's National Basketball Association, but her mom lived with her, and that's how she managed having 3 kids. You have to have some help. Laura, do you want to comment on that?
Well, I think that I agree with you need help. And we had one year, my husband was working on his PhD, and I'm a relatively new attending, and we had a brand new baby. And we actually hired a recent college grad who didn't have a job. Smart. And she lived with us for a year and just helped with the baby. And, we didn't have to pay her a huge salary, and she was just a part of the family for a year. And, that really saved us so that my husband could finish his dissertation.
Yeah, because that's an illusion people have. And Megan can probably comment. People have an illusion that you can get something done when a baby's around. You can't get anything done when a baby's around.
Not really. Brand new newborn, and they once be like, I don't know, 2 weeks old or so. After that, that's over.
Yeah, you just can't count on getting stuff done. So you really do need help. And I think that's the biggest thing. You only have one pie of your time. So the things that it's all about values, whatever is the most important. And usually it's got to be relationship with your partner, taking care of the kids, and getting your job done. Those things all have to get put in first. And when they're real little, you don't get as much time to exercise or do things as you do, or you have to be cute about it, like do it all with pushing a stroller and listening to medical podcasts. You have to kind of coordinate things. But as they get older, things change. Like you can sit at a soccer game and read your medical journals. It's just that I think the very beginning years are a little hectic. Would you say, Megan?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, for me, I always make it a priority to be home for bedtime, and we always read books, and that's like real special time for us. And I try really hard to be home for dinner, although that doesn't always work. But most of the time I'm home for dinner, and that's important. Family dinner is important to me. But, some weeks work ends up being a little more of a priority, and other weeks when work's lighter, I have time for family. So it's, it's kind of juggling back and forth sometimes, but there are some things that I always make a priority for, and bedtime is one of those things.
And that's a really smart thing that Megan mentioned. Kids love ritual. So if they know you're going to have family dinner together, you're going to have bedtime and books together, that in the morning you have a special little song, those are the things that kind of bind a family together, is having those rituals and routines, and you can work your stuff around it. You tend to do things after they go to bed. I mean, another thing you can do, I had a full-time babysitter because I just didn't want to worry if I had to run out to morning report. She could come early, she could stay late. That was easier for me. I know Megan uses daycare, but for me it was just security. And also 30 years ago, it wasn't as accepted to say I have to go pick up my kids from daycare. You couldn't just say that, I got to get out of there. I had a babysitter, so I never had to say that, and I could just work as long as I needed to if somebody was ill or there was a problem. But everybody does it different, and I think it's a little easier today to say those things. You can also adjust hours. Like Megan right now is usually 4 days a week. When my kids were real young, I did some funny things and worked 3 days a week, and then kind of worked at home when they were napping on the other days. I think now I would have probably been a little braver about working more hours. But back then I was always afraid to, I don't know, it was just a different time. Like most of my friends that had kids were home full time. So, you know, it's a different age. Does anybody want to talk about changing up schedules at all? I don't know if anybody else has a comment on that. But that's one nice thing about family medicine. You know, yeah, when you're a resident, there's certain hours, but one thing you'll find, and Dr. B is still here, one thing Dr. Beckstead kind of designed for our program is we have a really nice maternity elective, and maybe this will be a good segue into maternity leave. And what Dr. Beckstead put together, Dawn, do you want to tell them about the maternity leave and how we handle that kind of thing? If you can unmute. Oh, we can't hear you anymore, Dawn. It's so sad. Well, I will just, I didn't want to leave you out, but we can't hear you. So I'll tell you what Dr. Beckstead would be saying. If he was saying it, this is like a Dr. Beckstead puppet. I'll be the voice and I know what he would say. He would say that he encourages people to take the leave they want. We've had people take 3 months and then he'll make sure that they have an ease-in schedule afterwards. We have, you know, lactation room right at the office. We have lactation rooms at the hospital. We want you to breastfeed. We have guys take paternity leave. We have a thing we call, we don't advertise it a whole lot, but we have like an OB elective where we give them an extra month off and they write like a paper on parenting. So we make sure people do what they want to do. We occasionally have people that just want 6 weeks, but we tend to encourage more than 3 months. If someone wanted longer, you could. It's just then you end up extending residency. But Dawn has this maternity leave in there that makes it so that they can usually take 3 months and still have to extend residency. Somebody had a question about maternity leave in private practice. You know, I don't think that is as huge a problem as you were thinking. You know, pretty much, and again, I wish that John could unmute because he's so knowledgeable, but until he can't unmute, I'll have to talk. Usually people can take, you know, 6 weeks and then, or 3 months. And to be honest, the thing with family medicine is if you're in a smaller practice, you know, you can negotiate out things, and bigger places are under those rules that protect all parents. So usually 3 months is just an acceptable thing. Megan, you've taken a maternity leave recently. How does
Well, UPMC has a new 2 weeks of paid parental leave. So for me, my maternity leaves here at UPMC have been a mishmash of short-term disability. This past time I got to have those 2 weeks of paid parental leave, which was nice, and then some paid time off. In other jobs, I've taken just FMLA unpaid. So it really depends on your employer. How big they are and what kind of practice environment it is. So, but certainly this last maternity leave was probably the nicest as far as, you know, I had at least some pay the whole time. So that was nice.
One thing I always tell younger women coming up is, remember, a health concern can happen to anyone. A maternity leave, like Don Beckstead always says, and if his mic comes off, he could say it himself, but he always says he can work around a maternity leave. You know, he's got 9 months to figure that out. And we've never had a problem with that. I had one resident that matched with us, and she came into my office and said, "Oh, Dr. Sweeney, I've got to tell you something." And she said, "I'm pregnant." I said, "Oh, that's really nice." And she goes, "But I'm pregnant." I said, "That's great." And she thought it was going to be some big problem. Dr. Beckstead is the master of schedules and always makes it all work. So that's, if he wanted to say something else, this is the most fun I've ever had because I can put words in his mouth and he can't do a darn thing. He can't turn his mic on.
So Kathy.
Yeah. Yes,
I took maternity leave when I was in a rural health center and I was the only physician. Now I was employed, but it was just me. And we were so small, they did not have to comply with FMLA. And they had people, other doctors in the community come and fill in. And so we made it work. Now, the first time I did that, I only took 2 weeks off and I brought the new baby to work with me and hired one of my nurses to sit there. And then whenever he needed to breastfeed, she would come knock on the door and say, when you're done with the patient, your son's hungry. And so we made it work. And I can't say it was always easy, but you can be in a private practice, especially if you have other community physicians that may be able to fill in, or perhaps a locum. If you own your own private practice, you might want to hire a locum for that. But it's doable. You don't have to be in a big organization to do that. And I think the biggest thing that I learned, most of us women who are in medicine really like to plan things. We're planners, and we want everything to work the way we want it to work. And if you sit and think about how to plan for having children in medicine, you'll never do it. And so I guess my biggest piece of advice, and it goes against what we as women in medicine are ingrained to plan, but I would say don't plan, because whenever it happens, it's going to work out.
Yep. And you're absolutely right, because I had women that, oh my gosh, I got to have a baby at this month and third year so I can have this much and that. You just go with the flow. On the other hand, sometimes if people ask me, I'll go, well, you're kind of tired intern years. PGY2 might be more fun, but we've had people do it all different times. The thing is, it'll work. And people will support you, because thank the Lord we're in, well, 2020 is a kind of, I was going to use a bad word, but I think of 2020. 2020 is not my favorite year. But as far as family things and women in medicine, 2020 is a lot better than 1984 was. So let's go to another thing that one of the students mentioned, and they wanted to know about leadership. Now, I think that's a really good question. Because I think that, first of all, every physician is a leader. And in our program, I would say that every faculty has their own leadership niche. I think that for women, sometimes I feel that we don't step up to the plate and don't have faith in ourselves. And I think these days they call it imposter syndrome. Although I heard imposter syndrome talked about even when I was young. People would say, I remember one of my good friends who was actually an anesthesiologist and at shock and trauma in Baltimore said, every night when I go in there, I go, I can't believe I'm the one running this stuff. She was like, I can't believe it. So that's kind of a normal self-doubting. But I think one of the nice things, if you have a good relationship, and I know, again, I'd let Dr. Beckstead talk if he could get his mic off. He's very good at kind of helping people find their own strengths and run with them. Dawn, do you want to say anything about leadership if your mic unmutes? Oh, he texted. He said, it helps if you join a group where the leaders are flexible with schedules. Well, you're so clever. You weren't going to be able to take a whole hour of me putting words in your mouth, were you? I'll look for your little things and read them. This is the most fun I've ever had. Okay. So leadership, other things I will tell you is look for those leadership positions, like just informal things. Like I enjoyed Dawn and I are both on a committee for Pennsylvania Academy of Family Physicians. We plan CMEs. I like the American College of Osteopathic Family Physicians, like those government leadership things. Kiati, do you have any thoughts on leadership? Because you're in the middle of a faculty development fellowship.
Yes, so I totally agree with everything Dr. Sweeney's been saying. When I interviewed here, actually it's been 1 year since I came here as a faculty, and when I spoke with our program director, Dr. Beckstead, he made it very clear that if I was interested in something, whether it was medicine or leadership positions, I would be able to take the lead on it. And it's very true. I was able to join a fellowship, which is Faculty Development Fellowship, which I started in July of this year. And with that, I've been taking on smaller projects like Dr. Sweeney mentioned, but it involves a lot of resident teaching, medical student teaching. I also took on social media lead with our program, and just smaller things like that here and there, which I started picking up, and I'm only in my first year of being a faculty. So it's very possible, and like what Dr. Beckstead said in his chat, that if the leader is flexible and encouragement from all the faculty. So all the people you're seeing today, Dr. Sweeney, Dr. McClellan, Dr. Seams, Dr. Catoy, Dr. Maurer, they're all just so supportive of me being a new faculty and just taking on leads. So I think that's very important to look for where you are interviewing. And I met with Dr. McClellan and Seams the very first time I interviewed here. And it was very evident that they wanted women to grow. And it wasn't, that's not what they said, but it was just obvious. They wanted someone who was young, but also they were very supportive, and they're still very supportive. So I think that's very important for leadership to grow, is to have supportive colleagues, which I definitely have, so.
Well, thank you, Kiati. Now, this next question, I really hope Don we'll have him type if he can't talk, because this is one that's more in his field. It was about negotiating pay negotiations, because she's heard about differentiations in males and females pay scales. And Don just wrote, some folks are afraid of taking leadership positions, but I think that Kiati's idea about just taking on smaller projects, being successful in building is a great way to go with that. With the pay negotiations, you know, and encourage them is helpful. There must be a time lag, because I'm wanting him to text about this other thing. But with pay negotiations, that's their question right now, Don. And I would say that you know, sometimes money, time and money are in balance. Like when my kids were younger, now I'm working a lot later in life because I didn't make as much money when I was younger because I cut back in hours, but I wanted a little more time with the kids. So now there's nobody in the house and my husband's retired. So I get somebody to clean the house, I go to work. You know, in some ways it's a little easier than it would have been when they were younger. So, you know, sometimes you decide time's worth more than money and maybe you work a little less, but I'm telling you that it does kind of at the end not help the retirement fund, but you know, you have to kind of balance those out. But in general, I think the big pay differences that I see is not male versus female. It's rural versus getting out of the, and I'm going to read what Dawn has, rural getting out of the, right around the tri-state area like Philadelphia, all doctors, family doctors seem underpaid. Dawn, can you show me that chat thing again that you just put up? Or let's see if I can figure it out. He just, oh, Dawn said, if you join a group where the leaders are, oh, excuse me, you're negotiating, or wait a minute. Bigger organizations are fair with salaries. I've seen much less inequity lately versus a few years ago. And Dr. Sweeney is right. Oh, I love when he says I'm right. Time can be more important. This is the most fun I've ever had on Zoom. This is just terrific. At least I'm having a great time. He's thumbing.
I also think, Kathy, that I think that people talk about salaries more than they used to. It used to be a little bit taboo to discuss salaries. I think people are more free in talking about salaries now. And so when I was finishing residency and looking for a job, I found it very helpful to talk to my fellow residents. And we were split about half male, half men, half women. And we compared notes on what everybody was being offered, what was a good offer. And then when you're negotiating a salary, you set your bar high. It doesn't matter gender. You set your bar what everybody else is getting offered, and that's what you want. And you don't compromise.
You're absolutely right, because I was so ignorant. I worked every third weekend, and I think I made $45,000 a year. And I was on call every third night and did inpatient nursery and ICU. Boy, they got a bargain, didn't they? And I just didn't even know what people made. I was not too knowledgeable on the whole money thing. So nowadays, be money smart. That is one thing I will tell you as women. And I know Amanda and I have talked about this, that a little financial literacy is important, because it was something I didn't understand that well, and it's still not my best thing. Dawn has something, one of our faculty members chose to work 0.8 full-time and makes 0.8 times full-time salary. Yeah, that's what I think is beautiful in family medicine. Megan's raising her hand. It's me, it's me. But you know, sometimes it's not just family. Like there's guys that are into like triathlons that are family docs, and they don't want to work a full time because they have to like run 100 miles a week or something and swim 100 miles. And, you know, they'll just cut back their hours because they want to do more exercise. So family medicine is really good that way, in that we are in such demand, the most highly recruited specialty, that we can kind of say, okay, you're a good family doctor, you know, you're just going to be able to say, I want to work 3 days a week or 4 days a week. And Larry Bauer wrote, family physicians are a scarce and valuable resource. Everybody wants to hire more FPs. Absolutely. So now I'm going to throw little things, because those were all the things that came up. Before I get to my list, I'll give the students another chance to pop in. Do you have some other things you want us to do or talk about? Because we have plenty of time.
You had said that a lot of things have changed for the better for women in medicine. Would you say that there are still challenges that are, you know, left to overcome, or is there like a big challenge that, you know, is still there in your opinion?
Alexander, that is a great question. Things have changed so much for the better. I mean, I don't really see a whole lot. I think that men and women struggle with, you know, life balance. I mean, one of the nice things that I kind of wrote down as things I wanted to talk about is the emotional labor of a home. I think Fiona mentioned that she runs the family calendar. And I like this. I don't know if anybody listens to Curbsiders, but they've had some wonderful Women in Medicine podcasts. So if you love this subject, I refer you to the Curbsiders podcast. But they have a Women in Medicine series. And one of the things they talked about was emotional labor, and it's the invisible cognitive decisions that women mentally juggle at all times, the micro tasks of maintaining a home and family. And here's this woman's example. I loved it. It's the fact that mom knows exactly when her children's socks need replaced. And I just thought that was great, because that is the tiny little stuff. And in fact, the speaker at that podcast suggested that both partners write down what are the little mini mental tasks that people do. And I'm going to ask the women, the mothers, about how many things do you have on your mini mental tasks for each family member? What do you think? Fiona, you think 10, 15?
Something like that. I usually have a running list. I usually keep little post-it notes everywhere. Yeah. I've gone to that age where you sort of forget the little things. And the general advice I would give is that if you feel like you need to be in charge of those kind of things, that's great. But if you ask a spouse or a friend or a family member, whoever, to take care of one little aspect of it, then you can't be judgmental. So if they don't get the thing that you were imagining they were going to get,
oh yeah,
let it go. It's really not worth it.
Absolutely. That is the best.
Who cares?
That advice that Fiona just gave you will save your marriage. Just yes, honey, and thank you. Because it doesn't matter whether he got the Irish oats or the rolled oats. It really doesn't matter. There's oats. But delegation is everything. So that is really important. Is just, you know, get it off your plate. And if it isn't important, let it go. Laura, you've juggled 3 kids. What do you think about the little tasks of keeping a household in order?
I don't know. I think the biggest regret I ever did was delegate laundry, though. I ended up with a lot of pink whites.
It didn't work out so well for you. I know. I have a pair of Pilates pants and I have all these rips in them, and I'm like, people like ripped jeans. I don't care how fashionable they are. And I said to my husband, how did this happen? He goes, it doesn't happen often. Well, that doesn't help me, you know. Megan, do you want to talk about all that, the mini tasks that you have to take care of? Like, do you think it's evenly spread between you and Dirk?
Probably not. And some of that is probably my own doing. I'm probably a little bit guilty of wanting to take on maybe more of the household stuff sometimes. And I do agree with Fee that, you know, sometimes you need to delegate some things and not feel like you have to be superwoman and do it all. But I mean, I'm definitely the one who makes sure the kids all have their doctor's appointments, make sure that, you know, they all have clothes when they've outgrown their smaller clothes. And, you know, yeah, I definitely think that kind of stuff falls to me. But sometimes it's because I just like to do that stuff. Other things fall to me just by default. But there are some things that fall to my husband by default as well. So like I never have to deal with any of the car stuff. He always does all that stuff. So I can't say that, you know, it's necessarily unfair. Right now, he's actually home with 2 of our kids because of the whole pandemic issue. We haven't sent the youngest ones to daycare. And he also got laid off earlier in the year. So that's changed things a little bit. I think you probably will find that as circumstances change from time to time, your roles change a little bit in your relationship. And I think it's helpful to be flexible with that. And one of the best things I ever did was let go of some of the things that I really cared about. Like, it doesn't matter if your towels are folded in half or folded in thirds. It doesn't matter, you know, if the dishwasher's not loaded exactly how you want it. Like, just let stuff get done.
Very good. You know, some of the things I wanted to make sure that I brought up today is I think some of the themes we've already talked on. I think Laura has brought up life will happen in residency. And, you know, I think a big thing is when you pick your residency, pick a program director that will work with whatever life circumstance happens, whether you're a male and your wife has a baby, or whether you're a male and you have an illness, or a female with a baby. You want a program director when you interview that has that attitude that life happens and we need to work with it. And Dr. Beckstead has that attitude, I will tell you. And also take time to reflect on your priorities. You're going to do that throughout your career and throughout your day. And every day it's going to be different. Right now, my nephew's very ill. So I was balancing the last 2 days. You know, right now I'm pretty relaxed because we had a good day. But, you know, I was watching texts from family while I was doing a meeting on Friday. You're balancing things every day. And I think that's one thing I think, you know, Kiati and Amanda might want to comment on, because I know, Amanda, you've had some health problems with Mark's mom. How did you balance all those concerns when Mark's mom was sick with your career?
That's a difficult one. Earlier last year, my fiance's mother had some heart issues and was in the ICU in Pittsburgh, which, as Dr. Sweeney has mentioned, is about 2 hours away from us. And so again, that sort of cycles back to having supportive people around you. So that factors into both the work side and the life side. So Mark's family was able to really be there a lot of the times that maybe Mark and I couldn't. But at the same time, my work family was very willing to step in for me so that we could run out there for an afternoon to Pittsburgh, or, you know, be out there when we needed to so that her doctors could explain things to the doctor and the family. So, you know, I really do think you just need to lean on the people around you, both in life and work, to make those sort of things functional.
And this is a hard one. Amanda and Kiati may kill me tomorrow, but I'm giving you a warning. But Amanda and Kiati, Kiati has been, how long have you been married, Kiati?
2 years.
2 years. And Amanda is getting married. Can you give this group advice on how to pick a good spouse that you think works well for having a happy family life and a happy work life?
I can totally jump in. Actually, as we speak, my husband just went out and got us dinner. He was supposed to cook dinner tonight, and then what he was cooking turned out really bad. He's a great cook, but something happened and his recipe didn't work out. So he said, it's okay, I'm going to go run out and get something for us to eat. So it's very nice to have a supportive partner. Throughout residency, he used to be in a different state than I was. So he used to travel every few weeks just to see me. And when he did come over, he did cook for me. He used to cook and meal prep for me for the week, which was really nice. So it was, yeah, that was in residency. And now he still continues to do that. And also, I like to cook. So we take turns now because I do have much more time than I did in residency. But yes, it's very important to have that support from your spouse.
And it'll go back and forth. Like right now, my husband, believe me, he didn't do that much when the kids were little. He went to work. He was a very busy man. He worked 60, 80 hours a week. But now he's getting his payback. He cleans the house. He goes grocery shopping. He cooks dinner every night. he's paying back for those years. Like, you know,
Yes.
he was like getting out of that stuff.
Yep.
A lot of crock pots are a good thing too. Meal prepping ahead. You know, nobody wants to cook at 5 o'clock when kids are crying. That's one thing that I know.
I think the one point that I would like to make is having someone who understands your career. My husband's a pharmacist, so he's not a physician, but he understands exactly what happens in my life day to day. So when I say I'm on call tonight and I can't come home because I have a patient in labor, he automatically knows that means to drop off food. Sometimes I say, I'm fine, I'll just order, but he knows I like home cooked meals, so he'll drop it off and things. So just someone who understands what you need or what you want, instead of thinking of it as this is your time away from home or this is your time away from me. I think that's been very helpful for me to focus on my career most of my life.
Right, and then that communication, because, you know, I'm sure that, you know, that's an important thing, is to make sure you can communicate about whole life goals, because like I'm showing you at the other end of the career where Tom's doing more home stuff than he was when he was younger, you have to kind of communicate, negotiate all through. Dawn, did you want to say anything about that? Oh, here's what Dawn says. Pick a spouse who isn't afraid to change a diaper. That is great advice, Dr. Beckstead. We're going to like kind of engrave that on a mug or something. That's a good one.
I'm going to kind of piggyback off Kiati there just for a second, if that's okay, Dr. Sweeney.
Oh, we would love that.
I'm going to say that my future spouse here isn't involved in the medical community at all, but I think early on in our relationship, we sort of set expectations. And I think that's important. As Dr. Sweeney said, just make sure you can communicate with your partner. Because though he doesn't know the ins and outs of what I do every day, he doesn't, you know, necessarily know what's involved with a call night. You know, if I can explain to him what I might have to do, that the phone's probably going to ring a couple times in the middle of the night, that I might have to drop everything and go deliver a baby. You just have to set expectations for the people that you choose to spend your life with.
And it's also,
Oh,
can
yeah,
I
go ahead, Megan.
it's also about having a spouse who believes in you. I really think my husband has been with me. We've been together a really long time. We got married right outside of college, and we've moved together a bunch of times. And I think the biggest thing is he just truly believes that what I do is important, and he believes that I make a difference by being a physician. He's not in the medical field either. And so for him, my education and my career has been a priority, not just for me, but also for him, because he really believes in what I do. And so I think that was, you know, a really great thing and a great quality in a partner for a physician.
Right, and I think the other thing to realize is sometimes people don't have a partner, you know, whether it's divorce, death, or they're a single mom. You know, I think the thing is they have to create a partner, whether it is that you hire a nanny that helps you, and I've met people who have done that, or whether your mom or sister with you. Really, as a physician, I'm really afraid, and maybe some of the other docs could mention, I think that trying to work as a doctor and have kids all by yourself would be pretty rough. I don't know, what do the other faculty think?
I think the thing to remember is, you know, it depends what you do in the end, but like some of the other OB faculty have alluded to, when you're on call, really the whole family's on call. So my kids are older now, but when they were little, clearly I couldn't just strand them on a Saturday afternoon at the bookshop because I got called in stat. And also it's kind of awkward to take them with you. So, you know, you sort of learn to plan around that and be a bit more flexible. You know, the kids know if mom's on call, there's chances are she's not going to be able to do something specific. So we just work, again, you know, the flexible program director is really helpful with that. He spends a lot of time, I think, accommodating those of us who had a lot of activities going on pre-COVID, between two orchestra schedules and then all the kids' activities. I think I used to drive him crazy with requests, but, you know, having both the flexibility at the workplace and a flexible spouse or whoever else is helping you. Because you know, they say it takes a village. I think that's totally true. If you're raising a family as a woman in medicine, you really need help.
And I think I'd like to just emphasize that define your own success. Success doesn't mean that, you know, you made so much money, doesn't mean you work so many days, doesn't mean that you deliver babies, doesn't mean that you work in the ICU. It doesn't mean anything except what you want to do. And I actually think the most difficult question that a young person can ask themselves is, what do I want out of this? How do I see success? But I want to explain to you that it's not a one-time question. What you do when you're 24 may be very different than what you do when you're 28, than what you're 35, when you're 45. And so it kind of will evolve. And the one nice thing about family medicine is you can evolve with it. You know, if you're in private practice, and we are going to talk about private practice, that's the one topic we didn't get to. When you're in private practice, sometimes your practice might start where you're delivering babies, and after a few years you go, okay, I got enough kids in the practice, then those kids grow up, and then they grow up, and then you're taking care of geriatrics. That's the way it used to work in family medicine. Now a lot of people are employed, but yeah, yes, and Dawn just says, I always ask my faculty what they like to do so they're happy as possible, and family medicine does allow for that. And I think what I really want to make sure you do is that you find out what you're happy with, and realize that, you know, time is often more important than money. Kind of keep things where you want it to be. I do want to talk about private practice because so many people are employed these days. One cool thing that we just had one of our graduates talk about is direct primary care, which you probably will have sessions you can listen to at FMEC. We usually do. We have two docs in town that do direct primary care. We have a graduate of our program that has their own independent practice with about 3 of our other graduates, Reinhardt Family Practice. And then we have a couple other independent practitioners. So I think it matters where you want to practice, but I think it is doable. Who was the private practice question again? I can't remember. Could they speak up and make sure I answered that?
It was me. My question was more along the lines of, is it possible to stay in private practice, you know, with a family and life pulling you in 1,000 different directions?
Oh, okay. I actually think it's sometimes, if you're smart about it and don't mind running business, it might almost be easier, because you can limit the hours and go. I know when Dr. Reinhardt was first out, he'd like to coach his kids' hockey games. So he'd go in and see patients at 6 in the morning, but be done, you know, by 3 in the afternoon to go coach hockey. So I think it just matters. If you want to do private practice, you got to be a bit of an entrepreneur. You got to be willing to put in the hours to understand the business aspects of private practice. And if you're interested, I would take a look at direct primary care. There probably are some sessions at this conference. Well, I know Larry gave me the 15-minute warning, so we're down to 6 minutes. So I am going to, right now, be quiet for a second and have any of the students, this is like wild question time. Just ask anything you want.
So I think there was a question about gender discrimination in the rural setting that I'm not sure we really addressed.
Oh, thank you, Fiona. Fiona, why don't you answer that?
Yeah, so actually I was almost surprised that that question got asked. Personally, I've never come across a situation where I felt like because I was a woman working in a rural office that was, you know, somehow I couldn't possibly be a doctor. I would say gender discrimination is actually more of a problem in the hospital. I might be rounding with just coincidentally an all-female team, the students and residents and myself all female, and the patient will be, and it could be a woman. This isn't about guys doing this, but a woman might say, oh, hold on, the nurses are all here. And you know, then I'll introduce myself as Dr. McClellan, and this is Dr. So-and-so, and these are student doctors working with us, and they'll get back on the phone at the end of it and say, the nurses are just leaving. So I think that's been where I've really come across gender discrimination, but not because I'm a doctor or a rural family practice doctor in rural Pennsylvania.
I agree, Fiona. I think that too, my medical schools are now, what, over 50% women? So I feel like it's not, I don't find it to be too big an issue. Laura, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, when I first started, and there were only 2 women physicians in Huntingdon County, we got it a lot, you know, that the doctor didn't see me, or, you know, complaints about not being seen because I had been seeing them and they didn't equate me with being a doctor. But that was 22 years ago. And now there are just so many more women and women in rural areas that I think that's less. I mean, you're still going to get called a nurse, and you're still going to get, you know, honey and deer, and, you know, but it's better than it used to be.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think it's time to start winding down. So what I want to do is oh, Beckstead said he gets honey and deer too. In your dreams, you just wish you did. But he does, because all his patients are little old ladies that love him. But yeah, he gets honey and deer, but he doesn't mind it. Larry's telling us we're wrapping up. So what I want to tell everybody is thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you to my faculty. Thank you to Dawn. Thank you for Larry, and for our coordinators at FMEC that helped put this together. We're going to run a slide with our email addresses and our address and where we're at in Pennsylvania, and our website, www.altoonafp.org. So if you want to learn more about us, go to www.altoonafp.org. There we are, Altoona, right in the middle of the state. There's our hospital, and we have full scope unopposed family medicine residency with osteopathic recognition. And as Kiati says, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook. Kiati, can you share where they can like us? Because that's your payment for tonight. Like us on those social media things, because we're trying to get that going. Kiati, tell us about our social media.
You guys can find us on Instagram and Facebook. I'm just going to put it in the chat box, our Instagram and Facebook names.
Thank you, Kiati, because that would be wonderful. The last picture where you saw us dressed as ghosts is where we'd love to be. We wish we were at FMEC Live. That was last year when we were ghosts, and we were, what was the theme I did? I forget. It was like something about,
I think it was Ghosts of Diseases Past or something.
Oh yeah, you're right. Ghosts of Diseases Past. We did very well, by the way, and won a prize. Not that I'm bragging. But we would love to have you like us on Instagram and on Facebook. We have all our email addresses. Look at our website, and we hope to see you live at FMEC next year in Pittsburgh. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, faculty. Thank you, Dr. Beckstead, and thank you, Larry. Good night.
Well, you're very welcome, and let me just say that they can visit you at your booth at the FMEC meeting starting this Thursday. So take advantage of that. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to end the session at this point.